Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Autist Circle episode. I think I've got it listed as 12, but I'm not sure anymore.
Yeah.
I, I'm your host, the Bleach Demon, and joined as always with the co-host who has the most staying power. Yes, it's Total Blackout Painting, also known as Fat Dave, also known as I'm
Hello.
hearing my own audio.
Oh, I hate that. Yeah, hello. So, yeah, this is episode 32 or season 2, episode 12 of the Autist Circle. Today we are going to be covering Gustav Klimt, who is a Vietnamese or a German artist that most people have heard of. Most people are pretty familiar with at least some of his works. So, oh, awesome. Got to make sure that my thing is pointed to the right one. There we go. Oh, that's the wrong one. How awesome. I had it set up. Nope, that's the wrong one. Man, I am sucking it up here, dude. Okay, I think it's this one. Nope, that's not it either. Holy shit. Man, where's my freaking window?
Well, all I can say
find
is
the
at
right
least
one.
the tech issues aren't on me today.
Right, I got too damn many windows open. There we go. We'll do some Inception. There we go. I found the right one. Okay. There we go. Okay, so we're talking about Gustav Klimt. And me say, so why I think I got a thing here to start off with now that I flustered myself and fucked it all up.
There's
so
OBS.
why yeah, right. It wouldn't be an auto circle without some kind of technical issues. My network's good today, so that won't be a problem. But anyhow, so why did I pick Gustav Klimt for this? Well, Gustave Moreau, he laid the foundation for symbolist art as one of the foremost or forerunners of the symbolist movement. And the dreamy world of mythology portrayed by Moreau gives way to more modern ornamentation that Klimt is better known for. Moreau gave us kind of an academic vision of the art, or of art that allows Klimt to become an artistic and commercial success within a more modern art movement framework. So during the Gilded Age of the early 20th century, Klimt took advantage of the movement to push ornamentation and elaborate gold decorations to his audience of wealthy patrons. So Klimt, he really modernized versions of myth and symbolism, or Klimt's modernized versions of myth and symbolism lay the groundwork for Art Nouveau and other modern design movements. He's an important bridge from the older traditions of academic art to the modern world of art that we exist in today. So with that being said, we'll jump over to the timeline here.
So I would just like to point out that he's wearing a muumuu.
Yeah, he wears a smock a lot of the time, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that one of his close associates was a clothing designer, and which I'll talk about later in the episode. A lot of these pictures are him in a friggin' a muumuu or a smock. So here's our timeline movement, and we can see he's not an impressionist and not an expressionist, and he is considered to be a symbolist who turns the ornamentation of Moreau into modern art. He takes the allegory and iconography and turns it into something stranger, flatter, and more psychologically modern. He turns the ornamentation into modern art, and he takes the symbolist movement and adapts it into the nervous and elegant world of the late 19th and early 20th century. Klimt was part of the Vienna Secession in 1897. And their goal was to break from more modern traditions of the official art institutions. They did not seek just to paint differently, but to rethink what modern art could be, the legacy of which can be seen in the surrealist movements and succeeding modern art movements of today. And the motto of the secessionist movement was To every age its art, and to art its freedom.
Hmm.
He belonged to a tradition of painters who believed that painting did not need to imitate the old masters. The Renaissance tradition of the Pieta, of Titian, and the realism of Caravaggio was to give away to symbol, pattern, surface, and design. And Klimt is a heavy precursor to the Art Nouveau that dominated the advertising world of the earliest 20th century. And so Klimt begins in a world of official academic decoration, and he becomes one of the artists who helps pull European painting into modernity, where Moreau's symbolism feels like a sacred dream from the ancient world. Klimt's symbolism feels like a dream from the end of an empire. And he is the great painter of the end of the century, and they called that the fin-de-siècle of Vienna. Beautiful, anxious, erotic, ornamental, and haunted by death.
I'm just going to point out that I see exactly what you did there with the end of an empire and his death being in 1918.
Yeah, yeah, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
He literally is the end of the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Yes.
So,
And when you put it into German, it for their military, it's spelled KUK. So
oh
the
yeah.
Austrian army were cucks.
Oh, okay. So moving forward into the biography. So, Gustav Klimt was born on July 14th in 1862 in Baumgarten in the Austrian Empire. He was born into a family of artisans and creatively inclined parents. His father was Ernst Klimt the Elder, or Ernst Klimt the Elder, and was trained as a Jesus Christ, a gold engraver from Bohemia. What's this? There we go. Picture of a Bohemian castle here. His mother, Anna Rosalina.
I think I know that castle. I'm pretty sure that is one of the castles in Kingdom Come Deliverance, or at least it's architecturally very similar.
It could very well be. I mean, this is because I'm pretty sure this is a pretty ancient castle, or ancient, but it's been around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of the history in this part of the world has been around for, longer than us Americans are used to it.
Oh yeah, apparently it's the Karlstein Castle,
Yeah.
so it's Czech. So,
oh yeah, it's in Czechoslovakia,
which is in Bohemia. So.
Which is Bohemia, yeah. His mother, Anna Rosalina, was born in Vienna, and is often described as an unrealized musical performer. He was the second of 7 children, 3 boys and 4 girls. And all 3 boys in the family, Gustav and then Ernst Jr., who painted this work, which is called Before the Wedding, and Georg. And all of the boys were reportedly artistically inclined. So, despite his father working with gold and metals, his family was not wealthy. Obviously, because they had 7 kids. His father often struggled to find work, and his family languished in relative poverty. His childhood was not spent in peaceful academic or artistic pursuit. In 1847, his younger sister Anna died, and then around the same time, his older sister Clara, reportedly became mentally disturbed, and she became obsessively religious, and his mother also suffered bouts of deep depression. In 1876, he entered the Vienna Kunst. Okay, I'm trying to pronounce this word. Kunstgewerbeschule or Beschule. Kunstgewerbe. Fuck.
Kunstgewehr. No, there's no H. Kunstgewerbeschule.
Yeah,
which is
there we go.
Yeah.
It was the School of Applied Arts and Crafts, where he trained in decoration design and public visual works. And he was later joined there by his younger brother.
Hmm.
So, continuing on, talk about his education. So, while at school, he proved to be a very talented student. He worked inside the official art world of Vienna, and he was trained not
Hmm.
just to paint, but to decorate spaces. His professional career began in painting interior murals and ceilings in large public buildings. He studied architectural painting under Ferdinand Laufberger, who painted this work, which is Blind Man's Buff or The Cow Game.
Hmm.
The actual German is Das blinde Kuhspiel, which is the
The
blind
blind
cow
cow
game.
game.
Yeah, it's painted in 1865. Um, and he also studied with Julius Victor Berger, who painted this work here, which is Studio Interior, painted in 1902. And he had a great reverence for Vienna's premier history painter at the time, who was Hans Markart, or Makart, who painted this painting, which is the entrance of Emperor Charles V into Antwerp in 1520. And this was
Hmm.
painted in 1878. I'll refrain from zooming in too much to keep it YouTube friendly, but in
Arts be
1877,
artin'.
right, they be arting. In 1877, his younger brother Ernst joined the school, like I mentioned previously. And shortly thereafter, they met up with a student, Franz Masch, or Masch, who would later go by Franz von Masch. The three became close friends, and around 1880, they formed the Künstler Company. And the Künstler Company would regularly execute commissions from the Emperor of the Austria-Hungary Empire, who at that time was Franz Joseph I, this distinguished gentleman here,
Yep.
and other
Kind of a
members of what's that?
he was actually a rather tragic figure in a lot of ways. His
Oh,
children died young. The woman that became his wife was kind of indifferent, but when you get offered to be empress of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, it's like, well, who's going to turn
right,
that down?
right.
So yeah, he's a very tragic figure in a lot of ways, and it's kind of good that he didn't live to see the end of his empire.
Yeah. And maybe that's why the empire fell. You never know.
Well, they
I
they,
mean,
they
there were
were
a lot of factors to it, but
well. I mean, culturally though, yeah. When he got replaced by Carl, um, there just was nothing left. The empire was a wreck. From one of the most respected militaries to and basically the laughing stock of Europe because of early failures.
yeah,
Which is a shame because they actually did some innovative stuff, but they just couldn't keep up with the demands of the war.
right. And
Anyway,
that speaks a lot to Klimt being, the artist at the waning end of an empire, like I mentioned previously. So he lived it. Like we're able to look at it in hindsight, but he lived it, and he was watching, his empire decline, like we are watching ours decline now. Um, but other than that, so yeah, he painted for this guy and other members of Viennese high society. Laufberger recommended them to Fellner and Helmer. Then they were a Viennese firm specializing in theater construction. They were involved in projects in Reichenberg, Carlsbad, and Bucharest. And one of the major projects was the Berg Theater in Vienna, which is this,
ooh, wow.
I know, this fantastic building here. They don't make buildings like this anymore. Just a great building. Um, so, and you can see at the top here, they have Kaiser Franz Joseph, uh, as a placard at the top of the thing underneath the
Mm-hmm.
statue of, I think that's Apollo. Um,
I believe so. I'm not up on my Greek mythology today, so I
yeah.
apologize.
And in here, they completed over a dozen ceiling, stairway, and wall mural paintings between 1886 and 1888. And these brought his company a great deal of public recognition. And in 1888, Gustav Ernst and Franz received the Golden Cross of Merit from the Emperor after the completion of the theater. And he was also made an honorary member of the Ludwig Maximilians Universität München and the University of Vienna. So, just for his work on this theater.
Hmm.
Let's see the next one. And speaking of the Bergstadt, so in 1888, he was also commissioned to paint the interior of the Oldberg Theater before its demolition. And his painting of it brought him acclaim in Viennese high society. And in 1890, he was the recipient of the newly created Kaiser Prize award for his work. And that was this painting here, which I like it a lot. This was painted, of course, in 1888, and it's gouache on paper. It's not one of the paintings we're covering today, but just a little bit about it because it, to me, it highlights Klimt's talent and ability to paint regular shit, not just weird gold figures and abstract bodies.
Uh-huh.
I think it lends a lot of credibility to him as an artist to be able to create this. And also, it's a glimpse in the past for us to be able to look at this beautiful theater from the inside, the old theater, and the people and patrons that would have been there in such a grand space. There's just not that many places like this in America. And of course, there's not a ton of them like this in Europe anymore either. And this was, again, demolished and rebuilt into a more modern. But they really wanted to capture the grandeur of the old theater, and I personally believe that Klimt did an excellent job of this. It's a fantastic painting.
I love the fact that he's included the seat numbers correctly, like they would have done back then.
Yeah.
And you just have to wonder, looking at some of the faces, were these people that he'd seen in just on the street, or he had known socially, or something that he just wanted to give them a little nod by putting them into this painting?
It could very well be. Because I zoomed in and on it, and the paintings or the faces are very, like, each one is distinct. Each person in here it's not like he's reusing faces. There's there's no copy and paste. It's a very detailed painting, and I can see why he won an award for it, because again, like, it captures a slice of history, not just by showing us the beauty of the theater, but also capturing the patrons inside of the theater as well. So after this, he was receiving wide support from the public and the elite, and he was really a rising star on the Viennese art scene. But his life would soon take a dramatic turn. In July of 1892, his father, Ernst Klimt Sr., died after a stroke. And then in December of the same year, his brother and partner Ernst Jr. died of unexpected heart issues related to pericarditis, which they believe was related to some cold or something like that. It was a really unexpected death, and he was only 29 when he died. And the death of his father and brother were difficult blows in his life. And with the death of his father, he became the primary supporter of his family. And with the death of his brother and artistic collaborator, the structure of the artist collective shifted dramatically. And he also took responsibility for Ernst's widow and child. So Klimt and Masch collaborative efforts declined dramatically. Masch kept to the more academic style, and eventually moved out of the shared studio, leaving Gustav as the sole occupant. And this allowed him to move towards his own personal style. So, and that brings us to our next section, which is about the faculty paintings. And this was one of the more scandalous things that happened. In 1894, Mosch and Klimt were offered a commission from the Artistic Advisory Committee of the Ministry of Education to decorate the Great Hall at the University of Vienna. And although this was initially offered to Mosch alone, he was after a series of, or after rejection of his sketches, Klimt was brought onto the project. And Klimt was responsible for 10 tympanum pictures, which are the triptych pictures, like 3 panels, stuff like that. 3 of which were large ceiling paintings. And these were meant to represent the faculties of philosophy, which was this painting was meant for the philosophy, medicine, which is the previous one, and jurisprudence.
Yep.
And these paintings were meant to be allegorical representations. They were meant to be noble and uplifting, but Klimt's works were seen as ambiguous and somewhat disturbing, as we can see. These are kind of a little ambiguous and a little disturbing, especially the medicine one. Of course, we can see the woman with the snake in the front.
Jurisprudence, I'm very confused by the octopus.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff to it, and there's a reason why it was not it was not very well received. They were the paintings were meant to celebrate science, reason, and progress, and where the university expected reason, they received mystery, and instead of progress, they received fate and anxiety instead of order, and ambiguity where allegory was desired. So it was quite the blow to his public career, and these paintings themselves have actually been lost to time. I believe they were destroyed maybe during I think they were destroyed by a fire. And but they no longer exist. So we just have these representations, and the one that's colorized is actually one that was colorized. This is actually colorized by AI, but there's other ones that people have colorized themselves. And I didn't have it colorized by AI. I just found it on one of their actually, I think I got this on Klimt's website.
Okay.
So and the paintings were immediately attacked as ugly, immoral, and inappropriate for a university setting. And the scandal pushed Klimt away from public institutional commissions. We've got a new person in the chat. Welcome.
Greetings.
The university wanted Klimt to glorify knowledge, but Klimt painted the limits of knowledge to kind of scandalous ends. So moving on to the next. This is Emily Louise Flug. After the death of his brother, he became acquainted with her, and she was a sibling of his sister-in-law Helene, and an Austrian fashion designer. And she became his lifelong companion, and I believe one of the motivating reasons why why he was wearing smocks all the time, because his smocks were often patterned with gold and stuff like that, and probably designed by her. So their relationship was defined as both platonic and intimate at times, although he took many lovers and fathered up to 14 children. And at least 4 of them have been recognized legally with claims to his estate. And she remained his most constant companion throughout his entire life. So
well, if you're gonna wear a muumuu, at least you're putting out. might have to try that.
So in 1897, Klimt and other Austrian artists, designers, and architects broke away from the conservative Vienna Künstlerhaus, which was the dominant official exhibition society, to form the Vienna Secession. They were rebelling against the artistic gatekeeping which dominated Viennese art scene. They were frustrated with the academic system, which emphasized historical painting and conservative taste, and official juries. It was
Hmm.
a narrow idea of what, or it had a narrow idea of what constituted serious art. And Klimt had already successfully navigated their system, but wanted to explore beyond the system. And as stated previously, their motto was to every age its art, and to art its freedom. The group created its own exhibition space known as the Secession Building, which is this building here.
Hmm.
So, in this, the German inscription at the top is the motto: "Der seid ihre Kunst, der Kunst ihre Freiheit."
Right.
So every art its time, or every time its art, and every art its freedom. And this was designed by Joseph Maria Ulbrich. And in 1897, from 1897 to 1898, it became a symbolic of the movement. It was not just a
Hmm.
gallery, it was a declaration of independence in architectural form. And Klimt's was essential to the movement. He gave the movement prestige and symbolic weight, as he was already a respected member of the Viennese art scene. From 1897 to 1905, Klimt used the building as a platform to present his latest works to the public. And
Hmm.
that actually brings us to our first piece that we're going to look at today. And this is the Pallas Athene. Painted in 1898. It's an oil on canvas, and it measures 29.5 by 29.5 inches, or 75 by 75 centimeters. A lot of his paintings are square, as to where most of the other,
Interesting.
a lot of our other artists we cover, they have, landscape paintings or narrow, tall paintings. A lot of his works are square.
Hmm.
And this is currently located in the Vine Museum in Vienna. And of course, this is one of his early secession paintings, and it was done shortly after founding of the secession movement. The gold armor and weapons make her appear as a sacred military icon. It represents Athena not as a soft goddess, but as a stern guardian of a new artistic order. And contrary to the dreamy mythology of Moreau, the myth is transformed into a modern emblem. Klimt takes the goddess of wisdom and war and turns her into an armored patron saint of artistic rebellion. And this painting has strong golden elements and hints at Klimt's soon to be embarked golden phase, which we'll explore in later paintings. Athena is shown with the traditional symbols of her mythological identity: the helmet and the spear and the armor, with the Gorgon / Medusa head on her aegis right here in the middle. It's the tongue sticking out thing. Klimt sharpens all of this into something more modern and confrontational. The little woman in Athena's hand is usually read as Nuda Veritas, or the naked truth, and that's a theme which has recurred in many of his works. In fact, if we go back to Medicine,
Mhm.
that's what the woman here off to this, the nude woman off to the side, is meant to be the naked truth, the Nuda Veritas.
Hmm.
And the subject is ancient, but the effect is modern. Athena becomes frontal, armored, golden, and severe, less of a classical goddess than an emblem of artistic independence. And in this compact square canvas, Klimt begins fusing myth, ornament, and gold, and rebellion into a visual language that would define his mature work. Um,
Interesting. Just seeing that this is definitely all sorts of flavors of Art Nouveau.
yeah, yeah, it definitely does have a it has a lot of elements of that, and again, like, sees how it you can see how it opens the door for the Art Nouveau movement. And this was a very popular painting at the time, of course, because Klimt was a he was a success among not I mean, he had navigated the public system, but more amongst the elite,
Hmm.
and the people who purchase art. So this opened the door for those coming movements. So we'll move on to the next one. So in 1902, he created the Beethoven frieze for the 14th Vienna Secessionist exhibition. The exhibition was meant to be a tribute to Beethoven and included Max Klinger's Beethoven, which is this this statue here, which shows Beethoven on a throne with an eagle at his feet,
Hmm.
almost a little bit like Prometheus,
Hmm.
because Prometheus had the eagle, eating his liver every day. So I think
Hmm.
meant to show Beethoven as a heroic figure who brought kind of light to the people.
Hmm.
So the painting was done directly in the exhibition space, which is what we're looking at here. It's a 3-panel thing, and we can zoom in a little bit and see. Of course, there's lots of we can see the elements of gold in the painting, and then of course the the nudes, which is something he was fond of painting.
Really, I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, no, go figure. So
Yeah.
the exhibition space presented a symbolic journey through longing, suffering, hostility, and redemption. Is what the phase was supposed to look like. And during this time, his Klimt style was growing more decorative and symbolic. Figures became increasingly surrounded by patterns, and surfaces became more elaborate.
Hmm.
The more mature Klimt style starts to emerge with flatter spaces, stronger silhouettes, and golden ornamentation, and the mosaic-like patterns. And of course, the symbolic female figures in an attempt to make the decoration carry more meaning. The public criticism of the university paintings had changed his relationship with official commissions. And at the same time, his style became increasingly more popular with the elites of Viennese society, where he found tremendous support. And he moved from public allegory and display to private displays and portraiture, which will take us to our next work, um, which is the Three Ages of Women. And I like this painting. I'm a fan of this painting. It's a little weird and abstract, but I I think it's a really cool piece.
Hmm.
So painted in 1905, it's oil on canvas, and again a square. It measures 70.9 by 70.9 inches, or 180 by 180 centimeters. And this is currently located at the Galleria Nazionale de Moderna e Contemporanea in Rome, in Italy. And this was painted in the wake of the secession sensationalism. It displays 3 ages of womanhood: infancy, motherhood, and old age. So, again, it covers birth, motherhood, aging, beauty, vulnerability, and death, life from beginning to end. The mother tenderly embraces a sleeping child while wrapped in a dreamy embrace of flowers and sheer cloth, while the older woman seemingly laments, with her head in her hand. The older woman is separated, exposed, and turned inwards. She portrays a sense of shame or self awareness in a way. And the contrast of the two is palpable. And while the mother and child sleep, the old woman shows painful awareness. The mother shows beauty, while the elderly woman shows an onsetting decay. She is a painful reminder of mortality and isolation. And the decorative background, like we started to see in the Beethoven frieze, is really emblematic of Klimt's style. And it's what most people recognize today from Klimt's work. The gold circles and squares and square footprint are again hallmarks of his style that really are recurring throughout most of his work. And really, while less scandalous than the university paintings, it carries some of the core question, like what is human life when stripped of comforting illusions? And life begins with tenderness and matures into beauty and fertility, and then moves towards isolation and decline. So like the flowers in the hair and the wispy robe, I think are really they're really an interesting piece. And then, as a father and as I have seen I've seen how mothers love their children. And I think that's one of the things that really draws me to this is the embrace between the mother and child there. Um, like there's really it's true there really is nothing like a mother's love. And you know, thinking of how much my wives loved their children,
Hmm.
um, especially my second wife, how she how she loves my son and how she dotes on my son and how she always has. This is really probably core to my love for this painting because I see her love for my son in this embrace between that mother and child. So that's why I picked this. I really like this painting.
No, I think it's a really stellar example of his work, and you've got the mix of the background styling, but also his attention to detail with the human figures.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
it's very well done.
the hand on the old lady is really, I think, really neat. Um because it is so stark and detailed. The silhouette on it is so uh it's visceral the way her
Hmm.
hands are look so old. And despite the kind of abstraction of the painting, I think it really does capture the form. And of course the faces are not very abstract at all. The the
No,
the mother and child and their embrace really does it. Like I said, it makes me feel very deeply, which I believe is an important thing of art. It's to inspire feelings in the viewer.
very much so. And this is one of those I often like to shit talk, you know, kind of modern and abstract art. However, Klimt is kind of that exception for me. Yeah, going through this especially because it's not done to distort, but it's done to show raw emotion, like a good you know poem back in not Robert Frost, fuck that guy, but a good poem that has some evocative aspects to it, and
Yeah,
and I like that. And would I have this hanging up in my house? No. Would I go to an art gallery and see this hanging up and be able to go, that's actually pretty cool. Yeah, I could do that.
yeah. I think I actually have a poster of it somewhere. I used to. Um, but anyhow, with that said, let's move on to the next painting. And this is the portrait of Adele Bloch-Bauer #1. And this is fully into the gold phase here that we talked about with the golden ornamentation. So this was painted in 1907. It's oil, silver, and gold leaf on canvas, and it measures 55.1 by 55.1 inches or 140 by 140 centimeters. And it's currently in the Neue Gallery in New York City. And of course, it was commissioned by Ferdinand Bloch-Bauer, her husband. And it's
Mhm.
also known as the woman in gold or the lady in gold, as you can see why.
No,
So
I had no idea.
it's a mystery. So Adele Bloch-Bauer was a wealthy Viennese Jewish patron and salon figure. Her husband was a wealthy industrialist whose fortune came through sugar production. Klimt worked on the portrait for several years before completing it in 1907. And Adele was one of the patrons that helped him after the university scandal. And of course, this is one of the defining works of Klimt's golden phase. The portrait shows her hands and face in a natural way, while the rest of the portrait dissolves into a field of golden geometry, spirals, squares, eyes, triangles, and just jeweled patterns. And this painting is often connected to Klimt's exposure to Byzantine mosaics, like this one. This is the mosaic of Christ Pantocrator from the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, in Constantinople. Um,
You got it right there.
yeah,
Byzantium's
uh,
acceptable as well.
and especially after his travels to Ravenna, Italy, where he saw the mosaics of San Vitale, which this is one of them, and this is Empress Theodora and her retinue. And this was done. This is circa 526, 547, so it's really old, but you can see the influence of the mosaics in his work and the ornamentation and the decoration of the background. And I mean, scholars today believe that his use of ornamentation and kind of um, in the background and stuff like that was heavily drawn from the mosaics.
Well, and it's kind of important just as a context. A lot of those mosaics had just recently been rediscovered, and
Yeah,
so that was not just his art, but as a whole, it was a very big cultural phenomenon, and it's really fascinating to see him take that and
right.
turn it into this.
And I mean, yeah, like because we talked about that during Jacques Louis David, that he with the rediscovery of a lot of the older uh Roman architecture and stuff like that, that brought about like the neoclassical movement, that archaeology was like a relatively new field, um because uh they were starting to learn more about antiquity, antiquity as we know it today and as they knew it then also, because this, I mean, it's only 2 centuries ago. It's still relatively modern in terms of history, you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
Especially when you consider we're 2000 years from Christ and all that. Excuse me. And so the true world of antiquity, ancient Rome and ancient Greece and stuff like that, we're only 2000 years away from it, and this is just a scant, you know 200 years ago in light of that. So so um so in this one he really borrows the sacred iconography of the mosaics and uses it to transform a modern portrait. And in the Three Ages of Woman, Klimt treats the human body as the symbol of time and mortality, and in this he treats the portrait sitter as an icon of beauty, status, mystery, and modern identity. um, and of course the growing extravagance of the wealthy, um, and the aristocracy.
Mhm.
So with that, we'll move on to our fourth painting, which this is his most iconic work, I believe. This is The Kiss. It was painted between 1908 and 1909. And it's oil on canvas with gold leaf, silver leaf, and platinum. Uh, and it measures 70.9 by 70.9, or 100 by 180 by 180 centimeters. And it's currently located in the Upper Belvedere in Vienna, Austria. And of course, it's Klimt's most iconic and well known work, sometimes speculated to show Klimt and Emilie Louise Vogel locked in an embrace, but that's never been confirmed. The man is bending over the woman, holding her head as he kisses her cheek, and her body bends into the embrace while kneeling in a field of flowers, seemingly floating in space. Their clothing becomes a patterned shell wrapping the lovers together in one space. And in this, he turns an embrace into an icon. Love becomes not just an action, but a sacred ornamental state. and again, a continuation of Klimt's golden phase. It uses the Byzantine style of mosaic and ornamentation and shimmer of religious icons in the shimmer of a religious icons is applied to human love. The patterns on their robes contrast between the two, symbolizing the difference between the masculine and feminine. The man is in a rigid geometric structures while the woman is in flowery spirals. And the contrast really elevates or highlights the tension of the painting. And it's like a union of opposites. The spirals and circles and soft flowing figures versus the squares and of the masculine there.
Hmm.
And then the flowering space ends abruptly, placing love on the edge of a golden space, radiant and enclosed and suspended. It's not just a picture of lovers; it's a symbolic image of a human union, beautiful, enclosed, ecstatic, and fragile. And again, this is another one of my favorite works, and one that when I was feeling more romantic or in a more romantic place in my life, that I appreciated greatly.
Mhm.
I still think it's a really cool painting, and appreciate the way that he has handled or he's posed the people. It's not forceful, although it looks a little forceful the way he's holding her, but the way she embraces him back um, shows that it's a very loving scene, and the proportions are a little weird. Of course, because you
I've been
can't see it.
staring at his at the man's neck for quite a bit, and it's like,
Yeah,
what is that? But
yeah,
at the same time, um, I will say he does a very, very good job at faces.
yeah,
A very good job.
yeah. I really appreciate the way he does faces, especially female faces, and and we'll see more of that in the next painting that we're going to talk about. And this is the final painting that we're going to talk about, and this is Death and Life. This was painted in 1910, between 1910 and 1911, and it was later reworked between 1912 and 1913, and then again in 1915 to 1916. It's oil on canvas, and it's not quite square, but it's very close. It measures 70.9 by 78.7 inches, or 180 by 200 centimeters. Um, and this is currently in the Leopold Museum in Vienna, Austria. And Klimt really began developing the idea for this painting around 1908, but executed it in oil in 1910, and then exhibited it in 1911, and again later revised it substantially. And the Leopold Museum, where it's currently located, they note that the work won a gold medal when first shown at the International Art Exhibition in Rome in 1911. So the painting is divided into two symbolic zones. On the left, death stands alone in a robe covered in crosses. And on the right appears a crowded group of bodies, a mother and a child, um, a young woman and an older woman, and then a pair of lovers, all huddled together in a dense cluster, while death stands alone, while life is entangled and messy. And of course,
Hmm.
death is not attacking. He's waiting patiently and observing the complexity of life as it's happening. And the group is unaware of death. They sleep, embrace, and curl inwards and cling to one another. And their bodies represent the whole cycle of existence. And of course, like you said, faces before, the face, and this is the face in the thumbnail of the video, um, of the woman here, the old lady in the middle, which I think is just masterfully done.
Mhm.
Uh, and then the mother and child, which is a little more abstract, and then of course the young woman off to the side here with the pearls in her hair. Um, again, he does it's a little abstract, but still very recognizable. And of course, with all of the flowers and the squares and all of the other mosaic features that we've come to see in his paintings. So the living group again is wrapped in bright and colorful ornamentation, like I said, the patterns, all that stuff. And it's meant to show that life is visually abundant. Um, and then death, on the other hand, is narrow and upright and isolated in a darker, flatter space, covered in crosses, meant to show the more solemnity or the more solemn and religious aspects of it. So in previous works, life is gilded and vibrant, but he never forgets death, and that's what this one represents. So
Very
what are we
cool.
doing on time? Okay. So with that, we'll move into our final final part of the presentation here. This is again Klimt in his blue moo.
You know, I just had a recognition of something. Um, his neck in this image looks very similar to the neck of the man in The Kiss.
It could very well be. Oh yeah, that's a good point. There are some Boschian images or Boschian type type things in this. I can totally see that. I'm see Miss Linux is saying that in the chat here.
Yeah.
So in 1905, Klimt and his associates, they left the Vienna Secession after internal disputes, which are common among artists, as we well know. Yeah, I know. Go shock. And while he helped define the secession, he was not permanently bound to it, and his later career revolved around private patrons and exhibitions and portraits. He kept his own circle of artists, often described as the Klimt Group or Klimt-Gruppe. Along with Emily Fulga was members of the group. They included Egon Schiele, who painted this. It's a self-portrait with the physalis. Of course, you can see he's a more abstract type painter, following more in the abstract footsteps of Klimt. Although he has some very good realistic looking work too. And then Oskar Kokoschka, who painted this one, which is the Tempest Bride of the Wind, or the Tempest or Bride of the Wind. And this was painted in 1913. Anton Feichtauer, who painted this. This is a self-portrait, in his studio. And then also with Carl Moll, which I don't think I got.
No, you've got self-portrait in study, 1906.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
This is the self-portrait with the palette. I didn't put that one in here. And this is the self-portrait in the study. Okay, and then but also, and that's Carl Moll. This is Carl Moll, who was a very talented painter doing more realistic type work. But also, the thing that really sticks out to me is the way he handles the geometry of the floor. The square checkered pattern on the floor, I think, is really cool. But it also included architects like Otto Wagner, and this is one of his works. This is the banking floor of the Lauter Bank in Hohenstaufen-Gasse in Vienna, as well as Joseph Hoffmann, who did this. This is the interior of the Purkersdorf Sanatorium, and this was done in 1904. So design work and stuff. They were a loose but powerful network of designers, architects, patrons and younger modernists who influenced the modern art world and really helped usher in the Art Nouveau movement. And this is Alphonse Mucha, who will be our subject in 2 episodes
Nice.
when we talk about Art Nouveau. Then on February 6th in 1918, Klimt suffered a stroke and died at the age of 55. And it was his final and most devastating. It was the final and most devastating year of World War I. And the same year, the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed. So Klimt was born into the old imperial world of Franz Joseph and passed as that world passed on as well, leaving the world to become more modern, the more modern world we're familiar with today.
You know, it's
So,
interesting. Because you see a lot of people that are just kind of talking out of their ass about, you know, Art Nouveau coming along and it
mhm.
being a result of the First World War. And Klimt is a perfect example of why that is just misleading.
Yeah.
What I think it did was it elevated like the contemporaries and even the, you know, for lack of a better term, the students of Klimt who
Yeah.
went and took it into a new direction, and they had this experience in the trenches of the war and out of them, um,
Yeah.
and took that artistic talent and took it in a kind of twisted manner, and I don't mean twisted as in um, grotesque necessarily, although some of it is grotesque. Picasso, cough, cough. Um, but it's like they take that and they really infuse a lot of human emotion in it because of the ways of dealing with that war.
Yeah.
But it really to me speaks to it was happening already. The only thing that changed was the appetite to see these things by the general public.
Yeah. And and as we'll see during the Mucha episode, how that Art Nouveau style really came to dominate the world of of advertisement and stuff like that during the early 20th century, and how it really captured the heart or the eye of the public in a very big way.
Mhm.
And also we'll find that the Art Nouveau movement actually predates World War One by a fair amount. So it's not um, like the rise of it definitely came after the fall of the empire,
Mhm.
after the end of World War One. But the roots of it go back a bit farther than that. But that's what I got for Gustav Klimt. Um, Next week we will be talking about John Singer Sargent, who was
Oh,
one of the
cool.
most accomplished portrait artists of all time, and really um, is more in the tradition of academic art,
Mhm.
but helps bridge the gap between Klimt and the preceding movements of the 20th century.
Mhm.
So join us next week for John Singer Sargent. And thank you for joining us this week for Gustav Klimt. And yeah, that's what I got. This is
Go out and look at your art, people.
right.
If you
This
don't do
is
it, some dirty hippie will.
this is your history and your heritage and your art, and enjoy it, um, and have a great week.
Cheers.